Alright, so in this video we're going to cover basic Blender controls. This is going to introduce you to how to maneuver, what buttons do what, and what you are going to use for Project Zomboid. Alright, so in order to move in this thing, you're going to hold the middle mouse button down and move your mouse around. This controls your view. If you hold Shift, if you hold Shift and middle mouse button down, you can strafe left and right and up and down. You can also scroll in and out with the mouse button as well. Now these things here, this is your camera, and that's your light. You don't need it. So what we're going to do is, in order to select things in Blender, you have to right click it. Now to delete it, press X. It's going to confirm you want to delete it. Go ahead and press X again. Well, that doesn't work. Press Enter, and that confirms it. So we're going to select the light, we're going to press X, and we're going to left click on delete to delete that as well. We do not need that, and to be honest with you, I've never messed with it, so I think it's safe to say you won't either. Now, a few things to keep in mind. We are in object mode, so you can select an object and move it, and that is fine. If you press A, you can deselect what you have, but if you press A again, you can select everything in this scene here. But this is only when you're in object mode. So let's go to edit mode. We can press A to deselect an object and A to select your object again. Now, when you press A, I can't remember if it's going to select everything in the scene. We'll find that out later. But okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to right click. Oops, let's go to object mode. There we go. We're going to right click this object and we're going to hold the right mouse button and move it around. Now I can let go of the mouse button and it's still going to follow my mouse. So if we left click, it will commit the change that we've made. So let's move it around again. And if we right click, it's not going to commit the change. It's going to go back right to where it starts. So let's put this back. There we go. Okay, so let's go into edit mode again. And right here, this is where we're going to manipulate this square. So at this time, we are selecting, what is that, edge or vertex? Okay, it's the vertex or vertex. What this does is it selects a corner. So if you want to select multiple corners, you can hold Control and right mouse button. So I'm going to I'm going to click all these corners here. Okay, so now we have all four corners selected. So that's what that is. I'm going to press A to deselect, and I'm going to go to the side or the edge select. What this does is you're going to right click an edge and it selects a whole edge. So let's hold Control and select a few and see what it does. So it automatically selects the bottom and this. Let's do the top, and there we go. We have the whole face. So the third one is a face select tool. What this does is you can right mouse click and then grab the whole side. This is something you're going to be using a lot. From this point, when you select it in edit mode, you can move X, Y, or Z by left clicking and holding the arrow, and whatever you clicked, you can stretch or shrink the object. So let's press left click on Z and move it up. So that's going to move it up or down. Let's move that back a little bit. Okay, so we can do X. Oh wait, I said X on green, which was Y. Whoops. So let's left click X and see what that does. So that goes left and right. Okay, so that's basic manipulation on an edge and a cube. So let me look at my notes and see what we have. Okay, numpad. All right, so numpad is basically your views. I'm going to press 1, which will access that view. We'll press 2. Oh, by the way, it says what view you're in up here. So let's press 3 to access the right perspective. 4 is the user perspective. 5 is your isometric view. Let's press 5 again to go back to the normal view. 6 looks like a user preset. 7 is the top. 8 is well, I don't use 8, so that's interesting to me too. Let's press 9, and that's like a reverse action. So if we press 0 on a numpad, that doesn't do anything because I deleted the camera up here. Earlier in this video, if you remember, I deleted that camera. But if you didn't delete it and you press 0 on your numpad, it will go into that camera view and it'll show what it shows. But we don't ever use that camera, so I'm not worried about it. What I'm going to do is press 5 and 3. This will become in handy later, as when we start making a weapon, we're going to use a background image. And the only way to show that background image is pressing 5 and 3. Okay, so that covers the views. Let's go over scaling. We're going to go to, we're going to deselect everything and press A to select everything. So I've selected everything in this. We're going to press S, and at this point, we're free to scale in any way we want. So just remember, left click is to commit the change, and right click just says we're not going to commit. So if you want to rotate this, let's press R and see what happens. Now you can rotate. So if you want to rotate it at a certain axis, this is what you do. Press R and Y to rotate it at the Y axis, R and X to rotate at the X axis, and finally R and Z to rotate at Z axis. Okay, so let's go over quick menus. We're going to press N to bring up our side menu here. This menu is really only useful for background images, and I will cover that in a different video. For right now, we're going to press N to hide it. And T is your toolbar window here to the left. This should be open all the times. I wouldn't remove it unless it's up to you. I don't care what you do. Okay, so let's say you have a second monitor and you want to use all your monitors. Well, that's pretty easy. At this top right here, you see like a page icon. Well, that's not a page icon, but it's an icon. It's of some type. We're going to left click and hold, and then we can drag, and now we have two of the exact same views. But if you want this on a different monitor, this is how you do it. We're going to hold shift and left click. What we just did was create a new window. So we're free to drag this onto any monitor that you want. Now what this does is, it's the exact same as you see here, but kind of on its own. So let's say in this, if we're painting or fine tuning, we can see the established view of how the whole thing looks. So that's pretty useful for whatever. Okay, so we can also change it to texture paint, and that's what it looks like. For right now, I'm going to delete that, as you can't see my second monitors. Okay, so now we have two different screens here. If you want to delete it, all you got to do is hold this and move to the right, and you see an arrow. If you let left go, damn, I can't speak today. If you let go of left click, it will merge it back, and you'll be back at your default view. So sometimes I'm going to want windows such as this, and I'll show you why. This is a 3D view. On this window, they're all the same, but I want this on UV image editor, and this will be on my node editor. This comes in handy when we are coloring our object, but for right now we're not coloring, so I'm just showing you. So let's go ahead and get rid of it. Oh, I just created another one. Great. There we go. So I'm not 100% perfect with this thing, but I know enough to teach you how to do stuff, so that's all that counts. All right, so let's cover the bottom menus here. Right here is your add menu. So if you want to add another square, this is where you do it. And as you see, there it is. So if I want to delete that, I'm going to press X, and this is your delete menu. If you press faces, that's good enough to delete the whole thing. So what we have is mesh menu. I only use this for UV unwrap, and we'll cover that later. You can go into object mode and move the object freely, but we'll stay in edit mode for now. Again, I'll cover texture painting, edit mode, and object mode in a different video. Over here, we've got our 3 little things here. I can't remember if I've actually explained this to you already, but we're going to do it again. You select this. This is our edge select. We're going to click an edge. We're going to hold Control and click more. And there you go. So we just selected a whole edge. This is our whole side, essentially, or corner. That's what that does. We can select this to choose our face, so we could just select the whole face and adjust it if we want. And that's what that is. And that's about it right there. This very bottom part I have set to a text editor. For you, it should be Timeline. I don't use Timeline, and I don't care about it. So I use it as text editor, and we'll cover that later. But for right now, I think I've pretty much discussed everything I knew about the basics of dragging the stuff around. So this will conclude the video on the basics. Let's go into some other videos where I teach you actually how to make something.